Hey guys, Future AJ here. So just gonna say this quick, I honestly did not realize that this video was gonna be this long, 35 minutes. So I'm gonna put some timestamps in the description below. I guess I just rambled on to myself for so long and just didn't realize, but back to the video. Have a good one, guys. We're finally back with a new video today, and for today's video we will be covering some King's Raid. We will be covering the three most recent hero releases, Aselica the Knight, Daddy Crow our mechanic, and finally the new priest Shea. First and foremost, Vespa in a way is a little consistent as far as content releases go, in my opinion, events and such like that. But I know the one thing I can always be sure of is that when a new hero is dropped on the live servers, it is always top quality. Not only in aesthetics goes, but also the mechanics revolving each hero. Each hero in King's Raid, in my eyes, is very much unique in each sense in what they bring in team comps. And yes, I know that some units do have sort of similar skill sets, but as a whole, they all function very much differently. It's going to be interesting to see how long they can maintain this sort of development process on heroes before we start seeing very identical hero sets or just more controversial hero releases. Now, before we go into the actual skill sets of each hero here, I just do want to point out that I know there is that question thrown out every single time that a new set of heroes are released, and it's, do I absolutely need these heroes? And are they going to be better than the older heroes? Like I said before, Vespa's sort of development process for heroes make it so that I would say each and every hero is quite viable in their own perspective. As far as these three releases go, I'm going to say no, they're not a must-need. Crow, on the other hand, though, might be something you want to look into getting if you do World Boss rankings and Guild Raid rankings as well. Only because he is, I think, the definitive boss killer at the moment. But with Crow, and I'll go into it much more later, he does require quite a bit of resources to make him optimal. But first and foremost, let's go to Aselica the Knight. So our first unit here is the Guardian of the Sun, Aselica. Off the bat, you can see that her aesthetics is absolutely gorgeous. I just love the character design. I love the wings here for her. And before we go into sort of the skill preview for skills 1, 2, and 3, let's go over her passive skill, and that is Curse of the Sun. That's her skill 4. Upon attack, inflicts Curse of the Sun on the target you attack for 10 seconds. And after reaching 10 stacks of Curse of the Sun, you'll consume all the stacks and the target's going to receive magic damage. And on top of that, for 2 seconds, they'll be blinded, as well as having their attack reduced by 20% for 5 seconds. Overall, I only really see this being useful in PvP, if she's going to be fitting in a PvP comp, which she might. And the only reason is because a 2-second blind isn't really anything for Dragon Raids. For World Boss, the 20% attack decrease is okay, but for 5 seconds you would have to really stack a lot of attack speed on her to consistently maintain that debuff. Before I forget, let's go over Aselica's unique weapon and unique treasure. As far as absolutely needing them, I would say unique weapon, no. Unique treasure, you're going to see a night and day difference when you have this. So let's go with the unique treasure first. So for the unique treasure, she gains immunity to CC and also gets a 20% P-Dev and magic defense reduction. So really good unique weapon there. The big thing here is CC immunity. She does have quite the lengthy cast times on all three of her skills, so it's something you really want to have. And her unique weapon is make a contract with the ally with the highest attack at the start of the battle, increase the target's physical defense by 6% of Aselica's physical defense, and also increase Aselica's attack by 6% of the target's attack. Now, I know I said that this isn't really a must-have, but it's a good have, right? If you have it, use it, of course. And as we get better gear from, like, let's say level 90 content, whenever we get that, this just gets absolutely amazing, right? Just the better gear, the better that 6% value goes up, and I'm pretty sure it takes in account buffs while in combat. So overall, a decent unique weapon for her, but not absolutely a must-have. If you have a class UW, perfectly fine on her. So we're going to go over her skills 1, 2, and 3 before we go to her transcendent perks. So with her skill 1, it's a very basic skill, 2 mana cost, 9-second cooldown, deal magic damage within a sort of smallish range, and every person hit by the magic damage there also gets stunned for 3 seconds. So nothing to write home about, just a very basic stun move on a fairly short cooldown and at a low cost. Aselica's second skill is a much more interesting one than her skill 1, 2 mana cost at a 20-second cooldown. So this skill is going to imbue your highest attack ally with Blessing of the Sun, and what that's going to be doing is when you cast it and it's been casted, boom, they're going to get 20% of all their cooldowns. It's going to reduce all their cooldowns by 20% for that ally, also increasing their attack by an additional X amount. So for Guild Raid, this is actually really good if you're using someone like Celine or Mitra, someone with their highest hitting attack be on a long cooldown. Really valuable there, and that attack increase is just a, you know, icing on the top. So last is Aselica's big cooldown move, and that's going to be her skill 3. It's a 4 mana cost skill at a 25-second cooldown, and essentially she's going to ground herself and start raining down swords, and she's going to be healing everybody around her, excluding herself, as well as increasing their physical defense by 20,000 for 5 seconds. Pretty big physical defense buff, going to be really important in arena if you go up against a physical comp, as well as dealing damage to all enemies within range and decreasing their magic defense by 10,000 for 5 seconds. And after the entire cast is done, she's going to do another burst heal and burst damage to the enemies. Overall, pretty decent skill for sort of mitigating physical damage, but at the same time it only lasts for 5 seconds, and the same thing with the magic defense decrease. 5 seconds uptime for a 25-second cooldown seems a little low for me. I could be wrong, but that's just my perspective on things. But still, as far as the skill goes, decent heal and pretty big physical defense increase for arena if you go up against, let's say, a Nyx. Now to go to her Transcendence perks. First, we're going to go with her Skill 1 Transcendent perks, and with the light version of Skill 1, after you use her Skill 1, she's going to get a 350 attack speed increase for 5 seconds. I think that's a very good one to get, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be a bread and butter for her. The skill itself is on a low cooldown at 9 mana cost, so maintaining that is quite easy. The dark version of Skill 1 is something I wouldn't say very useful. I would say it's actually kind of useless unless you're wanting more CC, and that is reduce the cooldown by 2 seconds. It's going to bring it down to 7 seconds. 9-second cooldown on this for a 2 mana skill is already pretty decent, so I don't think the dark version is very valuable. Next, Blessing of the Sun, her skill 2. The perks for this one is I think going to be a staple for every build, and the light version is the one you're going to be getting, and that is increase the mana cost by 1, but to addition to this, now you can target 2 allies of the highest attack value. So instead of just getting 1 person, you're going to be targeting 2 people with that cooldown reduction and attack increase. And no matter what content you're doing, that's always going to be a great thing, just because that 20% cooldown reduction is absolutely valuable for anybody. Even in sort of a 4-man party for Guild Raid, if it targets your healer, that's great. Maybe they can keep up their buffs on, let's say, Kala, his skill 3. You can just maintain that over and over and over without any downtime. And the dark version is remove harmful effects from the target. Not that useful. Judgment of the Sun, her skill 3, the perks for this is decrease the mana cost by 1. Or dark version is increase the duration of the magic defense reduction on the enemies by 5 seconds. So a little background on this, I don't think they're going to be very valuable as far as a 5-second addition, just because base, it's a 5-second magic defense reduction on your targets, but this is a 25-second cooldown, and at 10 seconds, sure, that does make it a little bit better, but in my opinion, it's a sort of a waste of a perk, possibly, just for a 10-second sort of burst period time on a 25-second cooldown. I think the biggest thing there for me is just the fact that this is on a 25-second cooldown, and the uptime for that magic defense reduction is just too low. And for her Curse of the Sun, the passive she has changes attack reduction to 30%. Again, if you have a high enough attack speed and can maintain that, might be useful. Or Dark activates effect upon the 7th stack instead of the 10th. Again, could be some nice testing for PvP, but as far as PvE goes, I don't think it's the most useful thing in the world. And her T5 Light is attack, defense, HP increase by 15%, as well as PDEF plus 200. I'm going to say that's going to be a standard to get. And her dark is grant immunity to physical damage to 1 ally with the lowest HP every 15 seconds for 3 seconds. Skills like this I don't really like, just because the 3-second window is just far too short and inconsistent for a 15-second cooldown. But that's Aselica in a nutshell. As far as viability goes, she's somebody I would like to try out if I got her unique treasure, just because I find a lot of value with her Blessing of the Sun and getting her to T3 and getting the light perk for Blessing of the Sun. I think that would be very powerful in any sort of content you're going to be doing. Other than that, I don't really see any. Again, this just could be me just not being knowledgeable about her skill set, but her skill 3 is a little underwhelming as far as what it does. It's doing a lot of things at once, but are those things really valuable as far as your team comps go? And like I said, without her unique treasure, she can be easily knocked out of this. So you really do want her unique treasure or some sort of CC immunity skill granted to her. So I'm recording this during my editing of this video, just because I realized after listening to myself go on about the Transcendence perks and her skill 3, I do want to point out two things that are positive. One is the skill 4, Curse of the Sun, the one where she stacks 10 times on the enemy, then inflicts a 2-second blind and attack damage reduction. The perk for that for Dark is instead of 10 stacks, it's 7 stacks, and I feel that with enough attack speed and with her skill 1 perk for Light, 350 attack speed, getting to 7 stacks is going to be pretty easy, and that equates to a consistent tick of 2 seconds on a boss's CC gauge. So that could be pretty powerful for some content, but just wanted to put that out there just so it could be as informative as possible. Now, before we go over Shea, I do want to mention this because I don't think I mentioned it at the start. These are just my initial thoughts for these heroes. It's not a review on these heroes. I don't own them quite yet, so I can't really validate my opinions on them without getting them to a fairly respectable transcendence. But yeah, just initial thoughts here. Take it with a grain of salt. If I get something wrong, that's just because I'm just not as knowledgeable as I should be for them. And as the days progress, of course, my opinions are going to change. The more people use them, the more content I see them being used in. So with Shea, off the bat, I'm going to say this now. She is probably the one that I am least knowledgeable about, just because her skill set is very interesting, but at the same time, it's interesting in the way that I don't know how she fits in team comps. Her skills are powerful, don't get me wrong. It's just that I wouldn't know how to use her in a team. But first and foremost, let's go with her unique weapon and unique treasure. These two things, as far as unique treasure goes, you don't absolutely need it. Her unique weapon is something you will want to be using with her just because she has long cooldowns, and her unique weapon helps with those cooldowns. So first, with your unique treasure, Fairy's Crown, when Red Passion Dance is cast, silence all enemies by 2 seconds and increase crit damage of all allies by 20% while it's cast. So decent unique treasure, but do you need it? No. Unique weapon though, when a trance is stacked, all skill cooldown is reduced by 10% and recovers mana by 200. So in my opinion, this is going to be something you absolutely need for her, just because again, she has long cooldowns, and her gimmick is to continuously use her songs to stack up trance, which we'll go over in just a minute, and just gain a stronger version of a song afterwards. With her skill 4, her skill 4 is Trance. At the end of a skill, stack 1 Trance. Trance can be stacked to a max of 3 times, and if the skill is used when Trance is stacked at 3, consume all the stacks and heal all allies. Trance cannot be dispelled. Now, it's very important to note that each skill will get enhanced after consuming 3 stacks of Trance. Before we actually go into her skill 1, 2, and 3 preview, I do want to mention something with the mechanics of the songs. The mechanics of the songs each have a 28-second cooldown attached to them. So that's why I was mentioning earlier that you absolutely want her unique weapon to sort of have a consistent amount of gameplay with her skill usage. And also with the songs, her Trance, her skill 4 passive, is stacked after the song ends. And with each song, you can actually just cancel it early by clicking it again here. So example, click it again, canceled, got a stack of Trance. Also to note that the skill down or skill cooldown timer starts after the cast animation. So while she's playing the song, the counter is actually counting down. On to her skill 1 now. Her skill 1 is basically her heal skill, and it's a 2 mana cost heal. So after the short animation cast, she's going to do 8 heals in a row. And during these 8 heals, she's actually going to be doing a 35% damage reduction to your entire team, which is absolutely amazing. I love mitigation buffs like this. And on top of that, if you cast this with 3 stacks of trance, it gets enhanced to 100% extra healing, which is okay for burst moments. But the big kicker is that 35% mitigation becomes 70%. So 70% less damage when you use the enhanced version is absolutely insane. So like a little scenario, say you weren't able to CC the black dragon down before he flies up. If you like save 3 stacks of trance for this particular moment, you can just cast it, get that 70% damage reduction, and just basically shrug off that flying breath attack from the black dragon. Very, very powerful skill at 3 stacks of trance, and even just the base 35% damage reduction is powerful in itself. Onto her skill 2 here. It's more of a utility song. Well, all her songs are sort of utility, so that's sort of a stupid phrase, but it's a 3 mana cost song, and what it's going to be doing is going to recover all your allies MP by 1360 over 8 times. So you have to get the full 8 like ticks to get all that mana, and on top of that, whoever has max mana is going to get healed a certain amount. It's not too big of a heal, I don't think so. And for the duration of the skill, CC duration is reduced by 50%, so a pretty decent addition onto that. And if you use this while enhanced being the 3 stacks of trance, the MP recovery rate is increased by 50%, so a good boost there, and all allies will gain immunity to CC. And pretty decent enhanced version, but I'll go on this more later. But getting those 3 stacks is very time consuming, and you gotta kind of be intelligent about which enhanced version of the song you're going to be using. Last but not least, we're going over her skill 3 here. 3 mana cost, Dance of Red Passion. So essentially, during the song, she's going to be doing AoE damage to enemies, and as well as buffing your entire team by 25,000. And during the enhanced version of this, she's going to be dispelling positive effects off your enemies, as well as increasing the damage boost, the attack boost by 100%. So this is probably going to be the one you're going to be using a trance for every single time. The increased attack by 100% for that 25,000 is very powerful. And like I mentioned before, getting to 3 stacks of trance is not a quick thing. I'm going to show you how you can get to it fairly quick, but the cooldowns are still there. 28 seconds is very long, and you got to be mindful of what you're going to be using it for. Do you want CC immunity? Use your skill 2. Do you want that extra damage reduction instead? Use your skill 1. But generally speaking, I think the one you're going to be going to as far as enhanced trance version is going to be her skill 3, which is the increased attack boost. So to go back onto doing a quick trance song as soon as possible at the start of the battle, again, this requires your unique weapon, because every time you gain a trance stack, so after you finish a song or cancel it early and gain that trance stack, you get 10% cooldown reduction on your skills. So I think that's 2.8 seconds, so essentially 3 seconds off your skills cooldowns, and that's absolutely important for this. So let's say we're going to do the fire song tranced. We start off with the fire song, and we're going to cancel it right away. We're going to play the mana song and, you know, get that mana for all our allies and have this play fully, and wait for the trance stack to come up. And afterwards, we're going to cast the heal song, cancel it, get that last trance stack, and by this time, your 3rd skill, the one you started off with, should be basically off cooldown. You can let the 3rd skill play a little longer at the start of the battle, but with your unique weapon, it should work out to you having your 3rd skill up for that 3rd stack of trance. And then boom, we play it, get the enhanced version. And to note as well, stacking your trance gets easier after your first trance song, because it consumes the 3 stacks, yes, but after the song ends, you still gain that trance stack. So afterwards, it just gets easier and quicker to get your enhanced trance songs. Finally, let's get to her transcendent perks, and there's a fair bit of good ones in here, and a lot that's going to be situational or just not useful. And speaking of not useful, I don't think her skill 1 transcendent perks are very useful. The first one is light. Basically, when you use it, you're also going to do a 15% HP heal to all your allies when used. So that's basically a burst heal for her Transcendent perk. Not that useful. Dark variant increases crit resistance of all allies by 250 while you're doing the cast. And again, the only place I see this being useful is in arena. And at the same time, I think she functions a little too slow to bring into an arena. So I don't think her Transcendent perks for skill 1 are very useful. And next is her Blue Wind Song, the skill 2. The Transcendent perks for these ones are actually really powerful for skill 2 and 3. But skill 2 light, heal 500 MP to all your allies when you use the skill. So that's 500 MP on top of the 1360 MP you're going to be recovering over 8 seconds. So very powerful if you want to just kind of get a jump start at the start of the battle and gain that 500 MP right away. And the dark variant, which I think is going to be the one you use most of the time, and that is increase the attack speed of all allies by 250 during the cast. And I find that a little more valuable than the burst 500 MP, and I think that's the one I would personally be going with most of the time. With her skill 3 Transcendent perks, they're pretty powerful in my opinion. The first one I think is more so for World Boss, and that is when you use your skill 3 for the light variant, reduce the skill cooldown of all allies by 10%. And that's very powerful depending on what units you're bringing to your World Boss teams, especially for someone like Audi and let's say Gao, who have long cooldown skills. That 10% really racks up as the fight progresses. And the dark variant, which is I think is going to be bread and butter a majority of the time, is increase the amount of damage enemies receive by 15% during the song. So that's essentially a 15% increase in damage for about 8 seconds is generally how long a song lasts if you can get it off fully. So pretty powerful Transcendent perks for her skill 3. Skill 4, which is her trance passive, increase the heal rate by trance by 100%. Not that powerful. Okay, it's just there. And the dark variant, which is going to be bread and butter, is if you use a skill and use up those 3 trance stacks, instead of a heal, you're going to be inflicting damage to all the enemies, and whoever's hit by this magic damage also get their defense reduced by 10% for 10 seconds. So if you have your unique weapon and you're just constantly playing through songs and constantly doing your trance songs, maintaining that 10% defense reduction on enemies is fairly easy, especially with the 10-second time window, which I like a lot for here. And going to her T5, these ones may seem a little kind of scratch your head a little, but I'll go over light first. That's attack, defense, HP, 15%, and CC resist plus 100. Pretty much I think it's going to be a staple for some builds, just for the defense and HP increase. But the dark one, at first look, it kind of seems really useless for stuff like World Boss, Guild Raids, and any Dragon Raids, just because it's only ever going to proc once. So at the start of every battle, add 1 trance stack and recover 500 MP. So I think this has a lot of potential, and my only reasoning is because that 1 trance stack really ups your uptime for your trance, your 3-stack trance skills. Just because having that off the bat just equates to you only needing to cast 2 songs at the beginning of the battle to get your trance spell, and from there on, remember, after your first trance song, you only need 2 stacks after, because your trance song also gives you 1 stack of trance afterwards. So I think that this is something I would personally like to play with as far as builds go. It's a very quirky one, and off the bat it might not seem powerful, but I think it has a lot of potential for it. So again, Shea is that unit where I'm a little confused on how she would fit into any of my team comps. I would love to try her out. If I got her unique weapon, I would probably instantly buy her, just because her skill set is very intriguing to me, but she has her downfalls in a way of she doesn't have CC immunity from any of her skills. If someone can clarify this, I don't know if you actually gain a stack of trance if you get kicked out of your singing. Like if I cancel my song right now, I get that trance stack, but I don't know if you get hit by a CC while you're doing your song, you gain that trance stack. So if someone can clarify, that'd be amazing. But other than that, she's classified as a priest, right? But I think that's a little misleading, because you're not going to be bringing her for healing power. She's a bard. She's going to be bringing utility instead of healing. Healing being sort of more of a third thought in the process of this unit. Like her skill 1, It's her biggest heal skill, but I'm honestly using it for that 35% damage mitigation. But overall, I am pretty intrigued with Shea. I hope to get her unique weapon. I think she can fit in any team really, maybe not in arena, and guild raid for sure she'll fit in. World boss, I think she'd function amazingly, as well as any dragon raid. So now, but certainly not least, the one unit I think a majority of the player base has sort of got their eye on is the Punishing Bullet Crow. If you watch Router, you've probably seen his showcase on World Boss in Black Dragon on how insane his damage can be, and his damage is absolutely insane. But like I said earlier in this video, the resources you have to put into Crow is quite substantial, and we'll go into that later. But before that, let's go over his unique weapon. His unique weapon and unique treasure especially, you both need. I wouldn't build Crow personally if you didn't have these two things. So his unique weapon, the normal attack shoots an additional bullet that deals 50% of attack as physical damage, and when this skill ends, Hellhound Orchestra is activated, and increasing your attack by 30% and crit damage by 30% for 10 seconds, and this can only be activated once every 20 seconds. So really powerful. You need that attack increase from his unique weapon to be viable as a boss killer, and his unique treasure is the one you absolutely need in my opinion, and that is gain immunity to CC during skill activation, and damage is increased by 20%. The big one here is gain immunity to CC. His skills, especially his big dick DPS move, his skill 3, has a long cooldown, and you don't want to be kicked out of that, or else you're just gonna be sad from losing all that damage. With Crow's skill 4, his passive, it's Hunting Preparation. Crow is not affected by changes in attack speed. However, he gains about 10,000 attack, and his crit damage is increased by 80%. It recovers 300 mana every second, and also leaves a Hunting Dog's Fang mark to the target for 40 seconds when dealing a normal attack. And I'm pretty sure his unique weapon, the additional bullet, also stacks an additional Hunting Dog Fang mark, which is absolutely essential because that's his entire gimmick. He's going to be wanting to stack as many Hunting Dog Fang marks on the target for his skill 3 to do big amounts of DPS. But I know a lot of people are a little confused on why Crow is not affected by attack speed, and that's essentially his sort of balance. Vespa doesn't want high attack speed Crows just because that's going to be equating to insane damage with his skill 3. And at the same time, I think that's a very unique build for a unit like this. He's essentially the definition of glass cannon. Off to his skill 1 here, it's a 2 mana cost at a 10-second cooldown. Very low cooldown, very cheap skill, but it's basically your bread and butter for stacking your Fang marks. It shoots 15 bullets in a sort of spray and pray tactic, and if you hit all 15, you're obviously going to get 15 marks on the target, and you can stack it up to 100 times. And again, once we get into it, but stacking Fang marks is absolutely crucial in his rotation. His skill 2 is sort of his CC move and pretty edgy move in my opinion. It's called Struggle is Meaningless. Cool name, bro. It's a 3 mana cost at a 15-second cooldown, and then essentially he's going to shoot 10 torpedoes at a random enemy, and after those torpedoes launch, they're going to lay a freezing sort of area on the ground, and that freezing area is going to, I think, do physical damage if they're standing on it, as well as if they're still standing on it, it has a 50% chance to freeze the target for 2 seconds. So overall, decent skill for CC, but not something you want to go out of your way to kind of cast right away if you don't have mana. Now, last but not least, I know I keep saying that, sorry, is his big, and when I say this, it's big dick damaging move, and that is Even Gods Shall Die. What's this? Yeah, he all has edgy names for his skill, but basically 4 mana cost at a 20-second cooldown, and I'm just gonna show you the animation first. It takes about almost 4 to 5 seconds to fully charge, and pretty badass animation if I must say. And essentially the entire gimmick is it's going to consume all the Fang marks on your target and increase the damage accordingly to how many stacks of Fang you have on the target. So that's why it's so important to keep this skill on cooldown and having his unique weapon, because that additional bullet stacks an additional stack of Fang mark. So you want to stack as much as you can and just do big numbers with his skill 3. And like you saw earlier, that's a long cast time, and if you get kicked out of that cast time, you're gonna be sad. And that's why I said that you kind of want his unique treasure so he's immune to CC during that cast time. Finally, off to his transcendent perks here, and essentially with his transcendent perks, they're all going to be basically the ones you would want to pick, revolve around doing big numbers with this skill 3. And so for his skill 1, T1 light for his skill 1, sorry, upon damage dealt, recover 30 mana. So decent one, but I'm pretty sure Crow is not going to be going mana hungry with his passive. Dark variant is the one you're going to be wanting to go for, and essentially it doubles the amount of stacks you do with skill 1. So instead of 15 stacks, you're going to be doing 30 stacks if you hit with all bullets. So super essential to getting those big numbers with skill 3. Next is skill 2. I'm just going to say this off the bat, none of them is something you're going to be wanting to take, because skill 2 isn't really something core to his rotation. It's sort of the afterthought of, I have mana to spare, I'm going to use skill 2. But skill 2 light is cooldown is reduced by 3 seconds, and dark freezing chance of the freezing area is increased by 30%. So pretty good in arena if you bring him to arena. So instead of a 50% chance to freeze your target, it's actually 80%, super high, and in arena it's going to be pretty valuable. But as far as PvE goes, you're not going to be wanting to get any of these transcendent perks for skill 2. On to his skill 3. Skill 3 light is increase the cooldown time by 10 seconds, but the damage is increased by 100%. And the dark variant is reduce the mana cost by 1. Cool. So the light variant, of course, is the one you're going to be wanting to go to. 10-second increase on the cooldown is no big deal for 100% increased damage, just because within that 10-second period, you're actually getting more time to stack up Fang Mark. And the more Fang Marks, the better, and the bigger damage you're going to be doing. So that 10-second cooldown time increase is actually a plus for you. And onto Hunting Preparation, his skill 4 passive. Light is boss monsters take an additional 15% increased damage, or dark, mana recovery increases by 40%. So 9 out of 10 times you're going to be wanting to grab that 15% increased damage on the boss for the big damage on your skill 3. Again, everything revolving around your skill 3 doing as much damage as it can. And so grabbing the skill 4 light perk is something you want to get. And with T5, T5 light and dark is something you're going to be both grabbing. T5 light is attack, defense, HP increased by 50% and crit damage by 20%. And the dark is increase the mana cost of all skills by 1, but increase their damage by 75%. So this skill does become a 5 mana cost, but remember, at T5 you're going to be grabbing the perk that makes us a 30-second cooldown, so you have enough time to gain 5 mana to do big numbers with this skill. And plus a 75% increase for this skill is absolutely insane with all the other multipliers you'll be adding with his transcendent perks. So overall, Crow is the unit I would like to get. I have his unique weapon, but the biggest crutch I have right now with him is I don't have his unique treasure, and I'm a little wary for T5ing him without his unique treasure, just because that CC immunity is so essential to his kit. Of course, you can use things like Frey Shield or Annette to kind of have that CC immunity, but I just find it more consistent having a piece of equipment on him that makes him immune to CC. But overall, his skill set is very cool. His character design aesthetics very cool, and I just love the idea of stacking the Fang Marks and just using them all up for your skill 3 to just do massive insane numbers. Like I said, Router did do a video showcasing how much damage he actually does. Go check it out, because you'll probably just cream your pants after seeing the numbers. So that's today's video, guys, and again, these are just sort of my initial impressions on these units, and just sort of showcasing their transcendent perks and skills. It's not a review. Don't take my word on if you should buy it or not. It's just my opinion. But personally, I love these characters a lot, right? Their design and mechanics for each unit is very unique and interesting, but they're not must-buy heroes in my opinion, or must-have transcendent heroes. Somebody like let's say Claus, right? He's a free hero, sure, but he's a unit I would suggest everybody to have at T1 just from his pure utility from his skill 2. And none of these heroes, in my opinion, bring that kind of utility where you absolutely need it. But if you're world boss ranking, get Crow, and if you have the resources to invest to get his unique treasure, unique weapon, and Transcendent 5, go for it. You're gonna see some insane numbers. Aselica, the knight, as far as she goes, she's somebody I want to try out too, just because her second skill that increases the attack of an ally and reduces their cooldown seems like a very powerful thing in guild raid. And she's somebody who doesn't really need a lot of resources or high transcendence to be viable. And Shea, again, I have mixed feelings. If I got her unique weapon, I would probably buy her, but I'm just a little confused on how her skill set would work in a team comp, and that's ultimately because she's classified as a priest, but she's a bard, right? Her main utility is to buff and not heal. So that's today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Again, hopefully it did help somebody out there. Sorry if I did stutter a lot. It's been a while since I've been talking to the camera, and I do easily trip on my words, but have a good one, guys. Peace.